So our next two speakers, who are talking on a presentation entitled You Are Not Alone, are Rachael Schwarz and Karen Tighe. So Rachael holds a degree in Spanish and politics. She's worked for the New South Wales and WA governments in the protocol area, handling royal visits, state governor ceremonies and special events. In 2019, she was diagnosed with herpes simplex encephalitis, leading to a 6-month absence from work. Despite lingering health issues, Rachael has returned to work and credits her recovery to the support of her family, friends, colleagues and early diagnosis. She is now involved with neurological organisations to promote early diagnosis, better treatment and support for individuals post-discharge. Her goal is to help rebuild their lives after neurological conditions. I'll get you to come up. And also Karen Tighe. Karen is a prominent sports presenter who's worked for the ABC, TV and radio. With a degree in communications and psychology, she's anchored major sporting broadcasts for 8 years and transitioned to ABC Radio in 1997. She's covered events like the Olympics and the Paralympics, co-hosted radio programs and presented sports news in Perth. Karen received media awards in 2000 and 2001 and a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020. But in 2020, she was hospitalised with HS1 encephalitis, leading her to advocate for encephalitis awareness, sharing her experiences with the media on the World Encephalitis Day. Karen's passions for sport and advocacy have made her a respected industry figure.
Oh, good morning. Thanks so much to the Neurological Council of Western Australia, ETA and team here, and all of you for coming today. Encephalitis is one neurological condition amongst many, so we'd like to thank you very much for your support. Karen and I are very grateful on many levels that we can speak to you all today. We'd also like to begin by acknowledging the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, the traditional custodians of the land. We'd like to show our respect to their elders, both past and present, and also those here who are affected by any neurological conditions. As we are across the road from Katakumba, we hope we all realise how fortunate we are to be here with so many special people, a place that has been a major part of the Whadjuk people for thousands of years. Karen's going to have a talk.
Thank you so much, Rachael. And like Rachael says, thank you so much for the invitation to be here with us, for us to be with you here today. As indicated for me, and I ended up meeting Rachael that we could share our stories, it all started at the end of February 2020 and just before daily news would be dominated by COVID-19. I just entered a week at work feeling really off. I had no desire at all to eat any breakfast. I just woke up not wanting even a cup of tea, let alone coffee. Very strange for me. I was really busy at work that week and had a fantastic producer, so I thought I can push through this. And if I continue feeling off, I'll go and see my GP. I just felt woozy, run down. I was very achy in my legs and just off. Fast forward 6 days to the Sunday afternoon. I'd just come off air from our ABC Summer Grandstand program, and I just knew instinctively, I said goodbye to my producer who knew I wasn't well, that I just needed to get home and into bed. I was okay to drive, but I just had to get there quickly. And bed is where I stayed for the next 2 days, hardly moving at all. And I have no memory. I told my husband he could still go to work. I'm just going to be in bed. And I apparently rang my GP to make an appointment. I have no memory of that. And he was getting really concerned. In the end, rang my GP. They organised for a doctor to come and visit at our house. I can remember his face, but very little else. And apparently, after a couple of basic tests, I just couldn't say things like my date of birth, my address, and other very easy to answer questions. So he told my husband we needed to go to the hospital. And I remember my husband saying, "Can I drive you?" I said, "Yes." I went to Sir Charles Gardner. I have no further memory of of walking out of the house, arriving, or the next nearly 3 days. And I now know how lucky I was with my timing and my symptoms on arrival, as compared perhaps if I'd just arrived the day before, because it led to a lumbar puncture and other tests, and it resulted with me being diagnosed with herpes simplex encephalitis, which is an inflammation of the brain. Look, I don't know how much you can read up there, but it's a virus which can cause cold sores. It's not the only type of encephalitis, but the most dominant one, although we have no statistics here in Australia that we can access, which is very frustrating. For some, it can produce a cold sore. I've had a couple of those in my life. But for whatever reason, and we still don't know the answer, instead of just a cold sore coming up, it decided to go a completely different direction and go beyond my left eye here into the brain itself. And this is something that we will talk more about and what I've since learned, but I know how lucky I was to be diagnosed so quickly. And this sadly is very often not the case. I was in Sir Charles Gardner for 9 days only. They were lovely medical staff, and then I was able to come home with a nurse visiting every day for the next 2 weeks. And I was told on leaving hospital that my brain would need sleep, which it did. I was in bed for so long just sleeping. And that I would be pretty much physically back to normal, probably in the 3 months, but how much time the brain would take was the ongoing question. And on leaving hospital with the wonderful care there, I was just given no other information heading home about encephalitis. I couldn't even say that word for many, many months after, and it's also very acceptable to call it encephalitis as well. And despite loving family and friends, I just felt so alone. So something I will never forget is eventually just Googling around very slowly in bed, and I found, looking up the word encephalitis, the Encephalitis Society in the UK. The information and the support that they offer is amazing. And this is just a few of the books that you can access from them for all parts of life, age groups. Encephalitis does not discriminate. And the information there, and we'll talk more about it through a colleague, etc., and networking, I got connected to Rachael. And what a moment it was to meet someone who knew so much of what I was experiencing. And it's something we're so passionate about now, of not wanting people who are diagnosed with encephalitis to feel so alone. And we know many people who have been and still are. Rachael?
Yeah. So I'll just give you a little bit of my history. I was diagnosed with herpes simplex encephalitis in January 2019 while we were travelling overseas. And my symptoms were just an upset stomach, exhaustion, nausea, headaches, and travelling. And I just thought, oh, something's gone wrong. I've eaten something. It's a change of scene. I was unwell for a couple of days, and I did some hiking midweek. And then over the weekend, we stayed with some friends. But by the Saturday afternoon, I started saying things that made no sense whatsoever. And that's the last thing I remember until I woke up about a week later. And when I woke up, I looked at my husband and I didn't know who he was. And I couldn't say a word and I couldn't move. So once discharged, I still had major issues. I had a change in taste, severe headaches, no appetite. I've been diagnosed with epilepsy, which occurred as part of encephalitis as it was progressing, exhaustion, memory issues, and an inability to function on at even a minor level. So my story is quite long and complicated, and I've encountered many challenges, wondering if I'd ever be able to communicate, drive, work, or function normally at any level. Without my family, friends, and colleagues helping and encouraging me to get back on my feet, and some self-motivation, I don't know where I would be. This is my story, and I'm a lucky one. I'm mostly back to functioning the way I used to, and from the outside, many would not realise that I suffered from a severe brain illness. However, my journey to my former self is still underway, and many who have suffered from encephalitis do not make it back to any form of normality. So there are many types of encephalitis. There's infectious encephalitis, which is caused by viruses and bacteria, and autoimmune encephalitis, where the immune system attacks the brain. Most of the encephalitis survivors who I've met and spoken with tell me that nobody they knew had heard of encephalitis until they were diagnosed. It's an uncommon disease and can therefore be misdiagnosed until a patient reaches a critical level. Some of the survivors we know who've been diagnosed have been diagnosed with a mental illness, or they've assumed that they're on a drug overdose. In my case, I was fortunate that encephalitis was suspected early, and I was placed on antiviral medication soon after arrival in hospital, and following a lumbar puncture a few days later, this was confirmed. There's a friend of ours overseas who was not diagnosed until 3 weeks after her initial symptoms, and the antiviral drugs were unable to be administered to her. She now has problems stringing a sentence together if she's too tired. She suffers from massive fatigue, she deals with depression, and is nowhere near functioning at her previous level. And this is just one person who is challenged every single day. There are many others who don't function as they used to, and they've lost the ability to hear, to see, to walk, to talk and remember. Not only them, but their families, friends and colleagues have all been affected. So I'm just going to talk about World Encephalitis Day for a little bit. Oops, I've got to push the right button. World Encephalitis Day takes place on the 22nd of February every year. And 2.5 years ago, we got together with the Encephalitis Society and organised a get-together and for some major Perth buildings to light up. So that's our first one 2 years ago. They lit up in red, and we got people to post on social media with the hashtag #RedForWed. And we've done this for 3 years running now. There was a few of us there. I think you're here, Lisa. She was there. She's in that photo. And this year we had 20 landmarks lighting up for us across Western Australia, so we're very lucky. We met at Optus Stadium with other survivors, families, friends, to watch the sunset and to see Perth light up to raise awareness regarding many aspects of encephalitis. And we had representatives from Parliamentary Friends of Rare and Undiagnosed Diseases and Epilepsy WA who joined us to mark this day. And thank you for the Neurological Council for helping us raise awareness of this day. There's another one there. Karen.
Well, as said, meeting another person with the same condition as you, when not that many people can even say the word encephalitis that I knew or have since met, let alone know what it is all about, can really make you feel very alone and uncertain. So in very short terms, in the job that I have with ABC Radio, when I was not coming back to work for a while, my colleague, then the breakfast presenter, the late Russell Wolfe, now very sadly, he announced this on his program that I wouldn't be coming back for a while. And this announcement and his show was heard by a wonderful colleague of Rachael. And she got in contact with Russell because she dealt with him at other times as well to say, I've heard the news about Karen. I have a colleague, Rachael, who's gone through exactly the same thing. She would be so happy to meet Karen if that would help at any time. So Russell passed it on to my husband, and a few weeks later I had the courage to give a call. We met for coffee, and it's a moment I will never forget, us sitting face to face with a coffee to chat to someone who could absolutely understand the feeling, as much love that we had from our family, from the medical treatment we got from our colleagues as well, to meet someone who just absolutely could understand what was going on behind closed doors up here in the head, and who understand, for me especially, the likeness between the two of us, not being able to access names, so many names, for me, like there is a locked door up above my left eye. That's the best way I can describe it. We can't find a key, we can't push it down, and so many names are there and so many descriptive words. Anxiety has been huge for me as well. So the help of meeting someone else who knows exactly what you're going through is huge, and it's something which has spurred both of us on to help others who have encephalitis here in WA, in the Southern Hemisphere, Australia and New Zealand. Here is Russell Wolfe, and this is on the next Encephalitis Day when we were there at the ABC, Rachael and I. He was amazing, and so sadly Russell no longer with us. And while I never like really talking about myself at all, rather interviewing other people, that's my job on ABC Radio Sport, I did say yes after a request to do some interviews about how I was going. Steve Butler, who for so long was with the Sunday Times, he asked me and he came over to my house to have a chat and do a story. And the Weekend Australia magazine with writer Victoria Laurie, radio chats with Russell and other members of the ABC, and a really wonderful Radio National podcast series called Days Like These. And the reason that I decided ultimately to do these was not about myself, but my thought, especially after meeting Rachael, that even if one person heard that, one of those interviews or the podcast, or read something, and they do not feel alone if they are going through encephalitis or a member of their family or friend. And that's what happened. And through the Encephalitis Society, which I'm so happy to be an ambassador for, I found something in the very early months on their website which so helped me in not feeling totally alone. And it was something called A Letter from Your Brain. And this was written back in the 1990s by someone called Stephanie St. Clair. And I will just read you just like 2 sentences which just changed things so much for me. This is a letter supposedly written by your brain. What I need you to do is this. Because neither of us knows how badly I've been hurt, things are still a little foggy for me, or how much I will recover, or how quickly. Please go slowly when you start back trying to resume your life. If I give you a headache or make you sick to your stomach or make you unusually irritable or confused or disoriented or afraid or make you feel that you are overdoing it, I'm trying to get your attention in the best way that I can. Stop and listen to me. Love, your wounded brain. And of course it didn't solve everything, but I can't tell you enough. It made me feel not alone. That was exactly what I was going through. I've got the most amazing GP, and it explained my ongoing nausea, being afraid, confused, of feeling like the real me was getting pushed and pushed to the left-hand side of my head, and me just trying to fight that increasing pressure. I lost a lot of weight. I just kept losing hair for 3 months and just feeling so incredibly anxious. And I am not scared to say anxiety is still something that I've had to battle with very much, but I've got a lot of help. But to the extremes in the early months of being scared to be in our house by myself, even in the middle of the day, to think that I could never go outside and walk in the nighttime again or go to work in the nighttime. So to read that letter from my brain and realise that I was not alone. This was answering so much. I was pushing my brain too early. Of course, something we can't see the brain as we can broken limbs, etc. So I know that's that time limit, isn't it? That your body can recover quickly and we can walk, we can talk, we can look a lot like ourselves. But when things aren't quite the way you want them to be inside, that's hard to demonstrate as much as we're so happy to be as healthy as we are. Yeah.
So, just through word of mouth and the Encephalitis Society, the only encephalitis organisation in the world, which is based in the UK, we've now managed to meet more people, and there are about 10 of us in Perth who get together. We've had a few coffee mornings, and we look forward to keeping these going as we all move forward, sharing our new pathways. So if you know of anyone who has had encephalitis and just wants to know someone else who can relate to them, we would love them to join our group. We can be contacted through the Neurological Council. So how can we move forward, and what can the medical industry do? Moving forward, we'd like to see how we can work towards helping others by raising awareness of encephalitis to improve the diagnosis and provide support and guidance for recovery after discharge from hospital. So people who have suffered can talk, reach the areas they need to for counselling and for rehabilitation. Additionally, the Neurological Council and members have given us a lot of support, and we look forward to working with you further as the needs for rehab counselling and support overlap with some of you. My luck, and sometimes I really feel it is luck, came through my reasonably early diagnosis, who I saw and when I saw them, and the amazing personal support I've had from everyone around me, my family, my friends, my colleagues, and so many others who have just invested their time in helping me. One's first steps back into the real world can be really overwhelming and unbelievably hard. And without the amazing support, and finally meeting Karen as well, the first person I met who had encephalitis, my journey would have been a million times harder. This is one of the major events in my life that altered my outlook and my journey forward. Knowing I was not alone and that we now have a group who can get together and bounce off each other and who completely understand where we are all coming from without having to explain anything is a huge game changer for me, and it's motivated me to keep going. So I think Karen and I know how much this means for everybody who has to make this journey, to know they have someone who completely understands them and can walk this pathway with them together, which changes so much. So we're pretty much finished. We've got a couple of videos, but sorry, that was a little thank you slide. I forgot to slip that. Some more of our supporters there. And that was our last Encephalitis WA activity. We did a Perth Trail series together just to raise some awareness as well. But we've got a video to show as well that my work put together for World Encephalitis Day. So.
My name is Elizabeth. In 1979, when I was 29 years old, I had a mosquito bite me, and I ended up having something called viral encephalitis. I was 6.5 years before I walked and talked properly. I had to relearn names, I had to relearn faces, which I still am very poor at, and I had no other treatment apart from my own immune system.
So my version of encephalitis was autoimmune, meaning my body was attacking my healthy brain cells, causing the inflammation. I suffer from brain fatigue, so after this I'll need to have a nap for 15 minutes to recharge the brain. I still struggle learning new things and retaining that information.
You don't look any different, but you sure as hell feel different, and the effect it's had on family and that is pretty severe.
So after I woke, it's not like in the movies where they stand up and they walk around and they talk or anything. I was only able to move my eyelids, so they would ask me yes or no questions. I'd blink once for yes and twice for no.
For me, it feels like above my left eye, I have this big locked door where the majority of names and descriptive words are hidden, and we can't find the key, we can't push it down. But that frustration of something, especially when that's part of your work in terms of broadcasting and so on, to be able to talk easily and to just do things that you take for granted. And for me, that's been the most difficult thing.
There was a New Zealand study showed 60% of the patients with encephalitis died in the first 3 days. So the fact that we've got a group of survivors here, I think is really good. Modern doctors, modern hospital, modern drugs. It's the drugs that is the reason I'm still here, for which I'm very pleased.
Thank you to the Encephalitis Society. Amazing people that I've met, just to be able to speak to others who are going through similar things and to know that you're not alone.
Hi, I'm Rachael Schwarz. I'm in the Department of Premier and Cabinet, and I had encephalitis in January 2019. We were travelling overseas and I started having nausea and feeling a bit off, and 4 days later after that I was in hospital after I started saying things that made no sense. My encephalitis was from a herpes simplex encephalitis, an internal cold sore which travelled to the brain, and about a week later, after being in hospital, I woke up not knowing who my husband was or who my children were. I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, and that was the beginning of my journey into recovery. I've been unbelievably lucky. I have very few things that affect me now. Name memory's still not 100%, but it's getting a lot better. I do have epilepsy and I have tinnitus as well, and quite bad taste buds. But apart from that, I'm very, very lucky. And one of the amazing things that has happened to me is the support that I've had from my colleagues in Department of Premier and Cabinet, who have accepted me back, basically, on my different pathway back to recovery. So from asking me to come back to work as much as I could and helping me rebuild myself and rebuild myself in my job. That's been one of the most amazing things that's happened. This year we have World Encephalitis Day coming up. It's on the 22nd of February and we've got 20 venues across Western Australia lighting up in red for us. We've also got a group getting together at Optus Stadium on the 22nd of February from 6:30 p.m. so we can get some more awareness out there, and we're just trying to get in touch with anyone who maybe has had encephalitis and who wants to join a little support group. So we've got a group of us who now get together every few weeks for a coffee morning and share our stories and just enjoy each other's company and understand each other.
So thank you, and Rachael is amazing, and I think go on. But it's like, isn't it? And I think the opening addresses we've had today, so many elements to do with the brain, and if we can join hands and help in whatever way, and even just from our portion of that with encephalitis, that neither of us knew what that word was, let alone how to pronounce it or what it meant. But to find bodies and to share that information in this day and age about what you can access online, that you're not alone, or to share between the different conditions, like this amazing body that I just Googled and found, the Encephalitis Society. They are so helpful and they have continued to be. And yet I just want any hospital here or medical clinic, if anybody else is diagnosed with encephalitis, this is information. When I left hospital, they were wonderful there, but there was no information given except just make sure you see your doctor once a month and come back and see us, of course, if there's anything that you feel is wrong. So there is all this info, and to share it. Yep. And thank you for all that you're doing. And we feel so grateful to have been invited here today. Thanks again.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you to Karen and Rachael for so bravely sharing their story and for the work that they do. It is quite extraordinary to see how people can come together, whether it's 2, 3, 4 people, and make such a difference. So they are a support group here in Western Australia. They're not yet an organisation, but I hope they're embarking on that journey. But together they are supporting a group of people and making such a difference in their lives with no resources, just passion, time, energy and a common purpose. So I congratulate you on the work that you do, and we are so privileged to be able to help support that in some way. So thank you very much to the ladies.